So hello, my name is David Brown, President of Family Initiative.
My name is Trey Willoughby. I am a community advocate.
Hey, so we are really excited to have the opportunity to speak with everybody a little bit about the autism spectrum disorder. And so one of the things that Trey and I are going to talk a little bit about today is his experience, to share that with everybody about what it's like to grow up in relationship to being diagnosed in the autism spectrum, to give some folks some insight about what that's like. I know for myself as a social worker and clinician working in the community, it's invaluable to gain insight from individuals so we can serve them better, or as caregivers to provide care for them better. So Trey, I want to give you an opportunity a little bit initially just to kind of talk about your role in relationship to what you do for work and then some of the stuff that you do advocating in the community.
So I work for Buckingham Exceptional Student Center. I am a paraprofessional, so I work with kids with various disabilities from autism to, you name it, they probably have it. We help with toiling, we help with learning. We do different things based on their needs. And we are solely there to help them to hopefully one day be able to go out in the community either by themselves or with someone without having the same things they have now.
Awesome, very cool. So we were really fortunate to have Trey reach out to our organization in relationship to a particular experience that he had in our community. And he came to us and was really passionate about wanting to advocate for individuals on the autism spectrum in a number of different areas. And we've been really fortunate for the last number of months to collaborate with Trey on a number of different topics, a number of different initiatives in the community. And so Trey, one of the things I was thinking about as we get into some of those topics and the things that I know we've all kind of talked about, right? If you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about your story, which I know our entire team, and to be honest, our whole community, has found really exceptionally inspiring in relationship to sort of where you were and where you are now. And I think the folks that have helped you along the way, and I think the folks that you have helped along the way.
So I was born here in Fort Myers, but along the way, my parents were married, then divorced, then married, and so on and so forth. So I had a lot of change, and when it comes to autism, change is not something we handle well. So when it became, at first I was diagnosed with bipolar and depression and any behavioral thing they could throw at me. And then at 5 years, they really started to notice some things. And then at 8 years old, they finally just said, you know what, I think he's on the spectrum. And at the time, they called it Asperger's, but then they changed it and made it autism, high-functioning autism. So along the way, I had many behavioral challenges to the point where if you tried to put me on the bus, I was throwing rocks. One time, I had the police come out to the house because of whatever was going on with me, and I shut down immediately. I became silent, I became resistant, I did not want to answer any questions they had. And at that point, no one had told them I had autism, so they did not know that I wasn't being resistant, I just could not communicate. So the first thing they wanted to tell me was, we're going to put you in a police car if you don't start talking. And that was making things very worse. And so eventually I was able to start communicating what was going on. So things got better from that moment. But I reached out to Family Initiative to see what they could do and what we could do together to let the police know, let the community know that there's more to it than not just resisting. Sometimes they may have something, they may have autism, and I want to help the police know what autism may look like. And every case is different, but there are similarities that you can look at. And if they find out that they have autism, I want them to know what to do from that moment on.
And so, in the initial conversations we met, I know we're really fortunate that we had a lot of engagement and partnership from the Cape Coral Police Department, that they had done a lot of work in kind of talking through this with both of us, right? And so, I know through a lot of your advocacy efforts, we're able to provide training to law enforcement organization in Cape Coral. But I think the other part, Trey, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the safety fair that we had, right, and bringing folks from across the community together.
So we had an event with the Cape Coral Police Department. We all showed up. All different families showed up. Most of them had children with autism of various ages. So they gave us a tour of the building. They showed us different parts of the building. Of course, the first thing we had was we had to be locked down because there's something going on outside. So that became a scary aspect. And I'm sure most of them didn't even know that was the reason what was going on because they were so calm and collective about how they were doing it. Then after that, we went outside and we explored the police vehicles. They had brought us a bunch of different police vehicles, an army-looking truck, an armored truck. They brought out the boat so we could play or look at the boat. The kids were climbing on the motorcycles. They were putting on SWAT uniforms, things that you normally wouldn't get by walking into a police station. And so I think at that event, it brought a lot of happiness for me to see how many people came out and all the information we were able to give out to them so they knew they had somewhere to go. The police officers themselves learned a little bit. They learned that we're not just scary kids who act out. We have our fun sides. We just have to know, they just have to know how to help that fun side come out more than the bad side.
And I think one of the things that I know you shared with us when we talked about this that to me was really cool to see was that night having law enforcement officers hanging out, right, having a good time. I think our kids and adolescents hanging out, having a good time. And I think that when folks are together and they spend time together, I think people begin to understand each other better, right? And I think by the end of that night, you could feel that I think everybody felt really good about that night, right? Mm-hmm. And I think to your efforts and your advocacy, I think about creating more awareness in the community. I think helping folks understand each other a little bit better is huge. And I'm excited about some of the stuff we have planned moving forward too, because I think that'll make a huge difference. I know, Trey, one of the things that we, in the work that we do, right, with a lot of caregivers, a lot of social workers and clinicians and everything else, right? Could you talk a little bit about, and you alluded to it earlier, that some of the struggles maybe had behaviorally, right? Share with folks to give some perspective about to be on the spectrum. What is that experience like sort of as you interact with the world? And even like when you're in school, I mean, maybe some of the challenges and issues you experience there, and even as a teenager, right? Kind of engaging with the world, like what were some of the struggles you had? And then maybe some things people that helped you along the way, right, with some strategies.
So I think I found some of the things I struggled with was when I reacted to different things. I mean, most of my times was spent in general ed, which means there really was maybe two of us that were special needs or autism or whatever they may have had as well. So if a teacher said something and it set me off, I started crying. So that led to the other kids who think they're super cool bullying me because he's crying and they don't want to know why. They don't care why. They just know they want to make fun of me for crying. Which made things worse was people were watching me at that point. So then it became even more of a hardship. And especially as I led into middle school and high school and they see me more and more react to certain things that was happening. If something was supposed to happen and the plan just didn't go that way, I'd react to that. I'd start crying, I'd get angry, and seeing my would-be friends watching me do that, it changed sometimes. I mean, if they knew, okay, he has autism, he reacts this way because he's upset, because he needs a friend, well, then maybe they would have come and comforted me, and then I would suddenly be okay. But with all the eyes watching me, it was a lot to handle. And like if we went on field trips and I had to, like in high school, if I went on a field trip and we had to order our own food, that was not something that I could even try and do at the time. I would walk up there and I'd freeze and not know what I was doing. And eventually I made friends who knew, okay, you tell me what you want and I'll go order it for you and you just give me the money to do so. So I would do that and they would go and order the food for me and everything would be fine from that moment on. So through therapy though, lots and lots of therapy, behavioral therapy, where they would take me out in the community and kind of make me do that, but to the point where they would be there if I needed it, it helped. I mean, I suddenly was able to pull into a drive-through and know exactly what I want, how to say it, be clear about it, and I wouldn't have an issue. And I knew that I needed to advocate for myself, that if there was something wrong with the sandwich or whatever I was eating, I needed to go in and tell them that so they would fix it. Because without some of my therapy, I would not have been able to do what the things I'm doing now. I mean, stepping into a grocery store was hard because there's so many people running around you. There's so many people with different attitudes, no matter if it's you or them, they're focusing on themselves, so they may scream and yell at you for absolutely nothing. So another thing was going to the bathroom in public places was not something I liked doing, and if I had to, I did. And I had one reaction where I went into the bathroom and I would come out of the stall and I had an older gentleman say, hey, the stall is for people in wheelchairs, not for anyone to use. But so my immediate thought was, I don't like using the public bathrooms. So I ran out of the bathroom as fast as I could, not knowing what to do. So I think I would like for the community to be more knowledgeable about some things. And I would like to thank, if they're watching, all my therapists who have ever helped me for doing so, because without them, I would not be here. Without my teachers, I would not have gotten this far. Without my current co-workers, I would not be this far. So thank you.
That's awesome, man. It's very cool. So one of the things I would just want to ask you about, so I thought it was a great point you brought up, like supermarket, right? And so, and you and I have talked about this before. So sort of that famous quote of, if you've met one person on the spectrum, you've met one person on the spectrum, right? So in your experience, like when you go into the supermarket, and it can be overwhelming, right? Like a public place. So could you just share with everybody just briefly, in your experience, when it's anxiety provoking about being like in Publix or out anywhere, right? What about the setting or your experience makes you feel anxious about that?
So what would make me anxious was too many people, being surrounded by people, not having enough room to move, not knowing when it was my turn to walk up to the cash register, not knowing where I was in the supermarket, or if I was looking for something in particular, I didn't know how to ask. And I always had anxiety asking because I don't know how they're gonna react to my question. Are they gonna scream and yell at me for asking a dumb question? Are they gonna simply point to where they want me to go but not really give me instructions? So a lot of it was just not knowing what could happen.
So people just being more aware and supportive out in the world, right, of other people would have gotten you a long way, right, if folks had just done that and been more considerate about it. One of the other things, Trey, I know that when you and I were talking, and I know one of the other groups you spoke with, a lot of the parents shared with us, with me, about how really profound it was when you talked a little bit about medication, right? When you were, and I know, your family was trying to figure that out. And I thought it was super fascinating about how sort of everybody viewed the situation, but how you experienced it was different, right? And so I think it'd be profound for you to talk a little bit about that, about how you felt, right, when you were taking medication, as opposed to how everybody experienced when you were on medication.
So when I was younger, the first thing they wanted to put me on was Abilify, and at the time I was bipolar. So they all thought it helped me. They all thought, my parents thought it was helping me. They thought I was doing great on it. Well, for me, I didn't really feel anything for it. And the same thing for most of the medications they put me on. I switched medications 100 different times, 100 different medications, to the point where the doctor goes, I think it's working for you. And I'm like, well, I don't think so. And you only see me every 6 months, so I don't know how you would know this. Because for me, I mean, sometimes I have to ask other people, do I look less anxious? Do I look less angry? Because for me, I just feel the same. I can't really tell whether it's working or not. I mean, for other people, I guess that's what the medication is for. It's for other people, it's not for me. Mm-hmm. That's how I feel.
So when the folks around you and they're interacting with you, they observed you to appear different, but you didn't feel different.
Right.
Yeah. So I know for a lot of the moms and dads and foster parents, adoptive parents, everybody that we work with, obviously I think that's a really challenging thing for them to figure out, right? Like what's in the best interest for their kids that they love. And I think it's really fascinating that for you didn't feel any different at all, right? That you still felt anxious, just still felt unsettled, right? Even though everybody else around you was thinking you were better. And even like you said about the doctor, right? The doctor being like, oh, this is great. I think that's fascinating insight to share with people, because I think folks struggle with that a lot, right? One of the other things that you did a fantastic job on a number of occasions now, any advice or insight for parents, moms and dads out there, if they have kids on the spectrum, and obviously they're doing their best every day, right, to parent like all of us are, that are moms and dads. So any insight, thoughts you want to share about your experience, and then maybe things for them to think about in parenting?
Well, for the parents, I would definitely say take it one day at a time. Things will get rough, but they will also get better. I mean, they have to get worse before they can get better. So if something doesn't seem right, it probably isn't. If they seem agitated, they probably are. And if you just think about your kid and how many different circumstances you've been in, and how they reacted to that circumstance, you'll soon learn what sets them off, what makes them better, and then you'll know when they're on an off point how to fix that better. It's just all about the approach. If you, instead of yelling at them all the time, approach them, see what's wrong first, and see how you can help them. If you want them to do something, put it in such a way that they feel better about doing it. Like instead of, why don't you go do the dishes? How about go do the dishes and then you can do whatever it is that they want to do. Give them an incentive. And sometimes that, to the parents, that may seem a bit too much, but you're getting what you want and they're getting what they want. So your incentive is the dishes get done, and their incentive is they get to do what they want to do. So more of that, more rewarding systems would help. And then for the older ones, though, for the teenagers, it's not going to be about rewards. Because for me, I think it was more give me a certain time to do so. If you want me to do it, say, okay, you can do this until 3 o'clock. At 3 o'clock, you go do this, and then you can go back to whatever you were doing or on to the next thing. And so my thing for the parents would just definitely be take it one day at a time, and you can do it. I mean, we know you love us. We know you care. So just keep doing what you're doing.
That's awesome. Great stuff. One of the things that you touched on, which I think is fantastic, transitions, right? So about if you want a child to do something, right, of letting them know, like, in 10 minutes, I need you to do. So I think that's a great tip. I know we talk a lot with caregivers about that, to give particularly a lot of the young folks that we work with on a spectrum an opportunity to kind of process, right? Like to get ready for that, have that come, and then they're more likely to be able to settle into whatever it is that caregivers are asking them to do. So that's dynamite. Great tip. And the one day at a time. You can never go wrong, right? One day at a time. So the other thing, Trey, would love for you to talk just a minute about is moving forward, right? So you've been working your tail off, advocating to anybody that'll listen, right, about how the world can better support folks on the spectrum. In the future, what do you hope to see happen? What are some of the things that changes that you're hoping to see, not just in our community, but in our state, in our country, in the world?
In the future, I'm hoping that we'll be more inclusive, more help them be more involved in anything that we're doing. When it comes, I want in the future for if I'm driving with autism, I want the officers to know immediately when they see me or read my tag or whatever it is, okay, he has autism, approach this in this way. I want them even in the streets to somehow, with my driver's license, with anything, to be able to approach me and go, okay, he has autism, he has this, he has that. I want them to know the best way to approach. Because right now, many officers or many people in general do not know how to do that. They don't know the signs, they don't know the different things. I just want more inclusiveness. I want more knowledge to be out there. I want to be able to walk down the street and not be feared that someone's gonna try and scream and yell at me. Like an authority figure won't be approaching me in such a way that would set me off. I want to be able to do certain things without being set off. And the only way we can do that is by expressing that, by letting the community know what it is that we want to change.
Awesome. And then the last thing I want to ask you was any message for any other young people out there in the community across the state that are on the spectrum, that they're struggling every day, right, trying to make their way through the world. I know you met with a lot of the young folks that we work with, and I know they were super inspired by you, and you shared your message with them. So anything for young folks that are on the spectrum that are out there that you've yet to meet with and talk with, but you want to share a message with them?
Yes, I would say as the same for the parents. Keep it one day at a time. Tomorrow's always a new day. Don't worry about what happened yesterday. Worry about what happens today. Because what happened yesterday is yesterday. Today is another day. If you got upset yesterday, don't worry about that today. Worry about what you're doing today. Be aware of what you're going through and talk to your therapist if you have them. Talk to your parents if you feel that they can help you, which they can. talk to them, because not expressing your concerns or not expressing how you're feeling, it just doesn't go anywhere. And if you can't express them due to other things, find a way to communicate that. Sign language, whatever it is. Because only you can help you. And other people can boost that helpfulness, but only you can really show who you are. No one else can be in your shoes except you.
So Trey, is there anything else that I haven't asked you about today that you feel like you want to share or touch on?
I just want to leave one last message to my principal. I just want to thank her for hiring me, for one, for giving me the experiences I've had, for letting me come all the way to Tampa on a work day, for coming to and supporting all my events I have, for continuing to be there for me when other bosses would have just been like, you've taken too many days off. You, Dr. Ruthie, have been nothing but supportive, and I could say so many things right now, but I just want to say thank you.
That's awesome, man. Cool. I'm sure that'll make her day. So folks, for more information to learn about Trey and his work, or just in general to learn more about autism, visit Family Initiative's website, fi-florida.org. Thank you.